Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Zach with Fire and Ferment. Today, we're going to be tackling pizza crust. Sourdough pizza crust. If you're a sourdough nerd like me, you're constantly going to be looking for ways to use your sourdough starter. I recently delved into the world of sourdough pizza crust, and I gotta say, it is one of the best pizza crusts I've ever had. Let's jump right in. First off, our process starts a couple of days before. We take our sourdough starter out of the fridge and begin the feeding process. For detailed instructions on exactly how to measure and feed your sourdough starter, check out my sourdough boule video. Click on the link in the upper right hand corner for detailed instructions and measurements on that. I like to use a 1:1:1 ratio, which means 1 part sourdough starter, 1 part flour, and 1 part water. Our measurements include 100 grams of each. This recipe will make 4 sourdough pizza crusts that are great to freeze for later.
So we fed our sourdough starter, and now we just wait for it to double. Once doubled, we grab a large bowl. To this we will add 100 grams of active ripe sourdough starter, 12 grams of salt, and 375 grams of water. Let's go ahead and give this a mix. Next up, add in 500 grams of all-purpose flour. I like to use the handle of a wooden spoon to mix all of this together into a shaggy dough. We will then transfer this to a vessel with relatively straight sides and let it sit for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, begin a series of stretch and folds, which is important to build the gluten network within the dough. I do this 8 to 10 times with each set of stretch and folds. In between sets, let the dough rest for 30 minutes, so this process will take roughly 2 hours. You can really tell throughout the stretch and fold process that the dough becomes tighter and then more loose and relaxed when it rests.
After your 4th stretch and fold, cover your vessel and set it off to the side to bulk ferment. During bulk fermentation, the yeast and the bacteria in the sourdough starter will start to ferment the sugars, causing it to rise. I like to let it rise until it doubles. This process usually takes anywhere from 6 to 10 hours depending on the temperature of your house.
Once it has doubled, throw some flour down on a clean work surface. Punch down that dough and plop it onto the counter. It's a high hydration dough, so it'll be very sticky. Don't be alarmed, this is normal. Portion this out into 4 equal portions of dough. You can measure this if you want to, I just eyeball it. Take these crusts and put them in small glass containers with a lid to cold proof in the refrigerator. I like to keep these in the fridge for anywhere from 12 to 36 hours. The longer the cold proof, the more sourdough flavor develops.
If you don't plan on baking these within the next 3 days, just skip the cold proof. Throw them straight into the freezer. Just make sure you take them out of the freezer and put them in the fridge the day before baking.
Prior to baking, remove the dough from the fridge and slap that dough down onto a floured work surface for an hour. If you have a pizza stone or a steel, use that. I'm partial to pizza steels as you'll get a better heat transfer to the dough, thus better crispiness and better oven spring or rise in the crust. Preheat your oven and pan to 500 degrees for at least 30 minutes. Next, you want to carefully stretch your dough out into a circular round. Be careful to maintain the air pockets so they don't rupture.
Let's make a quick pizza sauce. All we gotta do is grab 1 can of DOP San Marzano tomatoes. Look for the DOP label to make sure you're getting the real deal. We're also gonna add in 1 teaspoon of Diamond Crystal kosher salt, 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil, and 4 large basil leaves. Pulse this in a blender or a food processor for about 20 seconds until you reach the desired consistency.
Now, assemble your pizza with whatever toppings you choose. I'm gonna do our pizza sauce, topped with grated Parmesan, diced shallots, fresh mozzarella, fresh basil leaves, freshly cracked black pepper, and a pinch of salt. Then drizzled with olive oil. Transfer your pizza to the baking steel and bake at 500 degrees for 6 minutes or so until baked to your preference. Obviously, the longer you go, the darker and crispier the crust will be. Once finished, pull it out, slice into it, and dig in. I gotta say, this is the way to do pizza. I got a nice crisp to the underside of the crust, but it still had that breadiness underneath the toppings. There was just a hint of sourdough zing to it that is a nice touch, and the whole reason we went through this process. I intentionally chose these toppings so that they would accentuate the crust flavor and not hide it, but you could certainly choose other toppings to your liking. I made a few more pizzas with pepperoni and ended up taking those crusts a little bit darker and crispier, which may be nice for some people. Give this a try and let me know what you think in the comments.
And that is how we make sourdough pizza crust at Fire and Ferment. If you like this type of content and you want to see more of it, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click on that little bell icon so you don't miss any new content. I love you guys, and stick around.